I'm not here to prove ghosts are real. I'm just here to explain why I still pay for a motel room that doesn't exist anymore. 3 winters ago, I was driving alone across Arizona, cutting through the state on my way to Los Angeles. It was one of those trips you plan in a rush after your life falls apart. New job, new city, new start. I'd packed everything I owned into the trunk of a beat-up sedan and told myself I was finally moving forward. By midnight, the only thing moving forward was the gas needle, toward empty. The highway was almost deserted, a black river of asphalt cutting through miles of open desert. The kind of landscape that looks beautiful in postcards and terrifying when you're the only car on the road. The sky was clear, the stars sharp and cold, but the temperature kept dropping. My heater had 2 settings, not working and trying its best. And the steering wheel felt like a strip of frozen metal under my hands. My phone had died 3 hours earlier. The charger port in the car had given up sometime in New Mexico, and I hadn't bothered to fix it. The GPS had gotten me onto the right interstate before the battery died, but after that, I was guessing. The gas gauge hovered just above the red line. I started scanning the side of the road for any sign of life. Another exit, a rest stop, a gas station that hadn't closed in 1998. For a long time, there was nothing. Just reflectors on the guardrail and the occasional road sign flashing past. Then I saw it. Buckhorn's Rest, exit 17, vacancy. The billboard loomed out of the darkness, lit by a single flickering floodlight. The metal was rusted around the edges, the red letters faded and peeling, like it had been standing there since the 70s, and no one had ever bothered to repaint it. Under the name was an arrow pointing right, toward a small exit ramp. No mention of gas, no restaurant logos, no family-friendly icons. Just that one word, vacancy. It wasn't my first choice. It was my only choice. I took the exit. The ramp bled into a 2-lane road with no shoulder, the desert pressing in close on both sides. My headlights cut a narrow comb through the darkness, catching scrub and rocks and nothing else. For a second, I wondered if I'd made a mistake. If this was one of those old signs no one had taken down after the place closed. Then, about a mile down the road, I saw lights. At first it was just a faint yellow glow on the horizon, like a small town sunk into the desert. As I got closer, the shape came into focus. A low, L-shaped strip of rooms wrapped around a cracked asphalt parking lot. A neon office sign hummed in the front window, casting a red halo on the glass. Above it, a tall, crooked pole held a glowing vacancy sign that buzzed like a nest of angry insects. It looked exactly like the kind of roadside motel you see in old American movies, the kind people joke about getting murdered in. At that point, it looked like salvation. I pulled into the lot and killed the engine. The sudden silence hit me harder than I expected. No other cars, no traffic out on the road, just the faint hiss of the cooling engine and the electrical buzz of the neon lights. For a second, I thought about just sleeping in the car. Then a gust of wind blew across the lot, and the cold sliced straight through my jacket like I wasn't wearing anything. That made the decision for me. I grabbed my duffel from the back seat and headed toward the office. The glass door had a faded open sign hanging crookedly from a suction cup. Someone had taped a paper "No Smoking" notice underneath it, the edges curled and yellowed. When I stepped inside, a small brass bell above the door gave a polite little jingle. The office air was warm and smelled like old coffee, dust, and furniture polish. A narrow counter ran the length of the room. Behind it, a wall-mounted wooden key rack with little hooks and brass tags. Real keys. No key cards, no digital locks, just metal keys with numbers stamped into oval tags, 1 through 18. For a moment, I thought the place was empty. The back room door was half open, but I didn't hear anyone. I shifted my duffel to my other shoulder and cleared my throat. Hello. Something moved in the back room. Footsteps, then the door opened wider and a man stepped out. He looked like a motel manager from a different decade. Late 60s, maybe, with neatly combed gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. He wore a pressed light blue shirt, a thin black tie, and an actual name tag pinned to his chest. The kind of uniform you see in old brochures for Route 66. He wiped his hands on a white towel and gave me a long, assessing look. "Late night to be on the road," he said. His voice was calm and steady. "No bored, what do you want? No fake customer service enthusiasm. Just simple observation, delivered like it mattered." "Yeah," I said, letting out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "Long drive. You're alone?" The question was casual, but something about the way he asked it made me aware of how empty the parking lot had been. "Yeah," I said. "Just me." He nodded slowly, like that confirmed something he'd already suspected. "You looking for a room?" I fought the urge to say something sarcastic and just nodded. "If you've got one." His mouth twitched, almost but not quite a smile. "Lucky night," he said. "We've got exactly one left." He turned to the key rack and scanned the rows with a small frown, then reached up and took down a key tag stamped with the number 7. The brass was darkened with age, the edges worn smooth like it had passed through thousands of hands. "Room 7, he said, sliding the key across the counter toward me. "You paying cash?" "I was hoping to use a card," I said. For a second, I wondered if I'd just made a mistake. Places that looked like this didn't always have working card readers, and my cash situation was not great. But he just nodded. "Card's fine," he said. "As long as you understand, we don't do refunds. Once you stay the night, that's it. No chargebacks, no disputes." Agreed. The wording was weird enough to make me blink. Yeah," I said. "Sure, agreed." He pulled an old-fashioned card terminal from under the counter. Not the sleek new kind, but the kind with yellowing plastic and a tiny screen that glowed dull green. The card reader beeped once when he slid my card, then chattered while it processed. While we waited, he watched me carefully, like he was trying to decide if I'd passed some test he hadn't told me about. The terminal spat out a thin receipt on curling thermal paper. He set it on the counter with a cheap ballpoint pen. "Sign at the bottom," he said. As I picked up the pen, he added, "Before you go to your room, there are a few house rules." I looked up. "Okay?" "Number 1, he said, raising a finger. "Once you're in your room, you stay there. You don't go wandering around after midnight. No exploring, no just checking things out. You go in, you lock the door, and you stay put." "That's specific," I said, half smiling. He didn't smile back. "Number 2, he continued. You don't open your door for anyone. Not for another guest, not for someone who says they work here, not for anyone who knows your name. If they need you that badly, they can talk to you in the morning." A chill walked its fingers down my spine. "Is that a safety thing?" I asked. "Like, have you had trouble before?" He took a breath and let it out slowly. "Number 3, he said, ignoring the question. If you hear knocking between 3 and 4 in the morning, you didn't hear it." I stared at him, waiting for him to grin, to say he was just messing with the out-of-towner. His face stayed perfectly serious. His eyes didn't move from mine. I forced a laugh. You tell that to all your guests." "Only the ones who check in after midnight," he said. He slid the receipt a little closer to me. "Do we have an understanding?" Something about the way he said it made it feel less like a question and more like a contract. The pen felt heavier in my hand than it should have. "Yeah," I said finally. "We do." I signed my name. The letters looked weirdly shaky. He flipped the receipt over and scribbled something on the back. "Wi-Fi password," he said. "Signal's better closer to the office. TV's got 4 channels, all of them terrible. If it turns on by itself, just unplug it from the wall." I watched his face carefully that time, looking for a hint of humor. A twitch of the lips, a spark in the eyes. Nothing. He pushed the key toward me. His fingers brushed the metal tag for a fraction of a second longer than seemed necessary, like he didn't quite want to let it go. "Room 7's down the left side," he said. "Park anywhere. Heat takes a minute to kick in. Locks from the inside. Use it." I slipped the key into my jacket pocket. "Thanks," I said. "I appreciate it." He nodded once. "Get some rest," he said. "You look like you need it." The bell above the door chimed softly as I stepped back out into the cold. The night air hit me like a slap. The neon vacancy sign buzzed overhead, flickering between full brightness and a dim, sickly glow. For a moment, the middle letters blinked out, leaving only VACY. For some reason, that bothered me more than it should have. The rooms ran in a straight line along the left wing. Doors painted a dull brown, numbers screwed into the center of each one. 1, 2, 3. I counted them as I walked, boots crunching on the gravel dust scattered over the asphalt. Number 7 was about halfway down. Its porch light was already on, casting a small cone of yellow over the door. The curtains were drawn tight over the window. I hesitated with the key in my hand, looking back over my shoulder. The office windows glowed softly behind me. Through the glass, I could see the manager's silhouette as he moved around, bottle-shaped and slow. For a moment, I thought he was looking directly at me. The wind gusted again, carrying a dry, electric smell. I turned back to the door and slid the key into the lock. It turned with a heavy click, like something inside had been stuck for a long time. The room smelled like every cheap motel room I'd ever stayed in. Cleaner, stale air and the faint memory of cigarette smoke clinging to the walls from back when you could still light up indoors. The carpet was thin and patterned with an ugly geometric design meant to hide stains. A double bed took up most of the space, covered with a faded floral bedspread. The small TV sat on a dresser opposite the bed, its screen reflecting the porch light in a dull gray rectangle. I stepped inside and shut the door behind me. The sound of the latch sliding into place felt too loud in the small room. The heater was one of those old wall units under the window. I turned the dial and it shuddered to life with a rattle, blowing out air that was only slightly warmer than the room. I dropped my duffel on the chair and pulled my phone from my pocket out of habit. The black screen stared back at me. Still dead. "Right," I muttered. "No charger." For a second, I considered going back to the office and asking if they sold chargers. Then I heard the manager's voice in my head. "Once you're in your room, you stay there." It was probably just a weird old man being overly cautious. It was probably just a place with a history, a few bad incidents that made him extra paranoid. It was probably a lot of things. I locked the door anyway. Not just the knob, but the deadbolt above it. The clock on the nightstand read 12:42 a.m. I kicked off my shoes, stretched out on the bed, and stared at the ceiling. The light fixture above me buzzed faintly. Somewhere in the wall, pipes ticked and popped as the heater struggled to push warmth into the room. I told myself I'd laugh about all of this tomorrow. That the no opening the door thing would make a funny story to tell my new coworkers in LA. That the old man in the office was just lonely and liked to spook travelers. I closed my eyes. It took a while, but eventually the exhaustion caught up with me. My thoughts blurred at the edges, the heater's drone fading into the background. The last thing I remember before drifting off was thinking, if anyone knocks, I'm not answering. I must have slept for a couple of hours, because when I woke up, the room was dark, the heater was silent, and someone was gently trying the door handle. When I woke up, the room was black, not dark the way it is when you turn the lights off at home, with the faint glow of street lamps slipping through the curtains. This was a heavier kind of darkness, thick and flat, like someone had painted over the world with black ink. For a second, I didn't know where I was. The ceiling above me was just a shadow. The heater was silent. The air felt colder, like someone had opened a window I couldn't see. Then I heard it. The soft, careful rattle of the door handle. Metal turning against metal. Just enough to test if the lock would give. Adrenaline hit me like a shot of electricity. I went from half asleep to wide awake in less than a heartbeat. Every muscle in my body tensed. I held my breath and listened. The handle turned again. Slower this time. Almost politely. Maybe it's the manager, I thought. Maybe he needs to tell me something. Maybe there's an emergency. Fire. Gas leak. Broken pipe. Something. I pushed myself up on my elbows, heart thudding against my ribs. "Hello," I called out. My voice sounded too loud in the dark room. The handle stopped moving. Silence. "Is everything okay out there?" I tried again. No answer. The memory of the manager's voice floated up, clear and sharp. "You don't open your door for anyone. Not for another guest. Not for someone who says they work here. Not for anyone who knows your name." I swung my legs off the bed, as quietly as I could. The carpet was freezing under my bare feet. I squinted toward the nightstand. The red digital numbers on the clock glowed faintly in the dark. 3:07 a.m. If you hear knocking between 3 and 4 in the morning, you didn't hear it. The handle turned a third time, slowly, like whoever was out there had all the time in the world. I stayed completely still. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then came the first knock. It wasn't loud, not the kind of pounding you hear in horror movies. Just 3 soft, deliberate taps. Knuckles on wood, polite, patient. I swallowed hard. My throat felt dry, like I'd been breathing dust. "Look, I already checked in," I called, trying to keep my voice steady. "Whatever it is, it can wait until morning." Silence. Then, after a beat, another 3 taps. Same rhythm, same gentle pressure. I glanced around the room, looking for something I could use as a weapon, just in case. The options weren't great. A plastic ice bucket, a lamp that looked like it would break if I looked at it too hard, the remote. I settled for staying still. The third knock was different. It wasn't any louder, but this time there was something behind it. A weight, an intention. Like whoever was on the other side was no longer just checking if I was awake. They were waiting to see if I'd obey the rules. I stood up slowly and moved toward the door, careful not to step on the creaky spots in the floor. The closer I got, the colder the air felt. By the time I reached the door, I could see my own breath in the faint glow from the clock. I pressed my eye to the peephole. At first, I didn't see anything. Just the empty stretch of walkway in front of the room, washed in pale yellow from the flickering porch lights. Then, very slowly, something moved at the edge of the glass. A shape stepped into view. Too close for me to see anything clearly. Just the suggestion of a shoulder, the curve of a neck, the crown of a head tilted slightly toward the door. Whoever it was had positioned themselves just out of the peephole's center, like they knew exactly where the lens ended. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. "Sir," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. "If that's you, I really—" "Open the door," a voice whispered. It wasn't the manager. The voice was wrong. It was too close, like it was speaking directly into my ear instead of through 2 inches of wood and metal. It carried no breath, no warmth, just sound, thin and sharp. My hand jerked back from the deadbolt like I'd touched a live wire. "I'm not opening the door," I said. "The manager told me—" "Open the door," the voice repeated. It sounded the same, exactly the same, no change in tone, no shift in volume or emotion, like a recording stuck on a loop. I took 2 steps back, keeping my eyes on the peephole. The shadow outside didn't move. Something brushed against the bottom of the door from the outside. The faintest scraping sound, like fingernails dragging lightly along wood. I grabbed the desk chair and dragged it in front of the door, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. It felt stupid and useless, but the weight of the chair pressing against the door made me feel a little less exposed. For a long moment, there was nothing. No voice, no scraping. I started to think maybe whoever it was had left. Then, very slowly, the knocking started again. This time, it didn't stop at 3 taps. Knock, knock, knock. A pause. Knock, knock, knock. A pause. Just long enough to make me hope it was over. Knock, knock, knock. Always the same pattern. Always the same calm, patient rhythm. I climbed back onto the bed and sat with my back against the headboard, blanket pulled around my shoulders. My eyes stayed fixed on the door, on the faint line of light around its frame, where the porch light leaked through. The knocking went on for what felt like hours. In reality, it was probably 10 minutes, maybe 15. Time stretches in weird ways when you're scared. Through it all, the voice didn't come back. No threats, no pleas, no explanations. Just knocking. Then, just like that, it stopped. The silence that followed felt almost louder. I sat there, frozen, listening with everything I had. Nothing. No footsteps walking away. No doors opening or closing. No murmured conversation. Just the distant, low hum of the neon sign outside and the soft ticking of the cooling heater. My eyes drifted to the clock again. 3:24 a.m. I stayed awake until the numbers rolled over to 4 o'clock. Only then did I let myself exhale fully. The heater kicked back on at some point. The air slowly warmed. My muscles ached from how tense I'd been. Every time my eyes started to close, I'd jerk awake again, convinced I'd heard another knock. At some point, despite everything, exhaustion won. When I opened my eyes again, sunlight was leaking in around the edges of the curtains. The room was washed in pale gray morning light. For a few blissful seconds, I wondered if I'd dreamed the whole thing. Then I saw the door, specifically the bottom 6 inches of it. Someone or something had dragged their fingers across it in long, vertical lines. The paint was scuffed and scratched, 4 parallel marks running from one side to the other, right where the sound had come from. The wood was worn but not broken. Whatever had done it hadn't used enough force to gouge deep grooves. It was more like testing. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and stood up slowly. The room felt different in daylight, smaller, less threatening, like a stage after the actors have gone home. Up close, the scratches were even more unsettling. They were too evenly spaced to be random. 4 perfect lines. Too narrow for a shoe, too clean for a key. I reached out and touched one. The wood felt cold. I yanked my hand back. Nope, I muttered. Nope, nope, nope. I got dressed quickly, splashed some water on my face in the tiny bathroom sink, and shoved my toothbrush back into my bag. My reflection in the mirror looked pale, with dark circles under my eyes like bruises. You're fine, I told myself. You're just tired. Creepy old motel, weird manager, some local jerk messing with you. That's all. It didn't feel like all. I double-checked the room before I left. Habit. Phone, still dead. Wallet, keys, bag, nothing left behind. I opened the door and stepped out into the morning. The air outside was sharp and clean, the sky a bright, washed-out blue. The neon vacancy sign was still lit, but the red letters looked dull and tired in the daylight. I turned to look more closely at the outside of the door. The scratches were visible here too. 4 pale lines against the brown paint, right at ankle height. From this side, I could see they extended a little farther than they had on the inside, like fingers had curled under the door as they dragged. My stomach flipped. I locked the door out of reflex and headed toward the office. The manager was already behind the counter when I walked in, flipping through a ledger with a ballpoint pen in hand. He looked up as the bell jingled. "Morning," he said. "Sleep okay?" I stared at him. "Was that a joke?" I asked. One eyebrow twitched upward. "No," he said. "Why?" I dropped my bag at my feet. Someone tried my door, I said. Around 3. They knocked, a lot, and they told me to open it. The manager's face didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened. You open it? He asked. No, I said. You told me not to. He nodded once. Good. That's it, I demanded. Good, that's your response. Who was it? Some drunk guest? Kids messing around? He set the pen down carefully. We didn't have any other guests last night, he said. I blinked. What? You were the only check-in after 10, he said. And I locked the office door at 11. Nobody else came through here. My mind tried to find a way around that. Staff then, I said. Maintenance, housekeeping, whoever. He shook his head. Don't have a housekeeping staff, he said. Not at night. Don't have a maintenance guy either. Place is small. I handle most things myself. I felt a thin thread of anger push its way through the fear. Then what the hell was at my door? I snapped. Because something was there. He studied me for a long moment. The ticking wall clock filled the silence between us. Room 7 keeps to a ritual, he said finally. It doesn't like to be ignored, but it respects rules, most of the time. That's not an answer, I said. It's the only one I can give you, he replied. You're checked out now. You can get in your car, drive away, and never think about this place again. Or you can stay and start asking questions you won't like the answers to. Up to you. I ran a hand through my hair. This is insane, I muttered. Do you at least have cameras, footage, anything I can look at? A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. We don't do cameras here, he said. Never have. Some things don't appreciate being recorded. I stared at him, waiting for him to laugh, to tell me I was on some kind of hidden camera show. He didn't. Instead, he slid a small, folded slip of paper across the counter. What's this? I asked. Receipt, he said, and a piece of advice. I unfolded it. Room 7, one night, paid in full. Underneath, in careful handwriting, were 3 words. If you come back. I looked up. Why would I come back? I asked. I'm leaving and never... You'd be surprised, he said softly. People say that a lot. Something in his tone made my skin crawl. I shoved the paper into my pocket, picked up my bag, and headed for the door. As I reached it, his voice stopped me. You didn't say yes. I turned. To what? To the question, he said. I asked if you wanted answers. You didn't say yes. I don't, I said. I just want to forget this place exists. His gaze flicked to the window, to where my car sat in the lot. You're welcome to try, he said. I pushed the door open and stepped out into the bright morning. The drive back to the interstate felt shorter than the drive out, like the desert was eager to spit me back onto the main road. I told myself I wouldn't look in the rearview mirror. I lied. When I glanced back, the motel was smaller than it had seemed the night before. A squat, tired shape against the endless flat land. The vacancy sign was still buzzing faintly, a shimmer of heat, or maybe my imagination, blurred the edges of the building until it was just a smear of color against the horizon. Then I turned onto the on-ramp, and it disappeared behind me. I told myself once I hit the interstate, it would all start to feel like a bad dream. I was wrong. Because 100 miles later, when I stopped for gas at a busy modern station, fluorescent lights, multiple pumps, a convenience store humming with people, the attendant refused my card. Declined, he said, chewing gum. Says the charge is disputed. That's impossible, I said. I just used it last night. He turned the screen toward me. There it was. Buckhorn's Rest, Room 7, chargeback initiated. My stomach dropped. I didn't dispute that, I said. I literally just checked out. The attendant shrugged. Maybe your bank flagged it or something. You can call the number on the back. I pulled my phone out of my pocket on instinct. The black screen stared back at me, still dead. For the first time since I'd left, I thought about the manager's words. Once you stay the night, that's it. No chargebacks, no disputes. I paid cash for the gas. As I pulled back onto the road, a thought crept in, quiet and unwelcome. If I didn't file the dispute, who did? I tried to forget about Buckhorn's Rest. By the time I reached Los Angeles, it was just one more bad memory on a long list. New city, new job, new apartment, where the only thing that knocked on my door was the neighbor asking if my music was too loud. For a while, it worked. I told myself the night at the motel was a combination of exhaustion, an overactive imagination, and a weird old man who liked to scare travelers. Whenever I thought about the scratches on the door, I reminded myself how easy it would have been for someone to do that with a key, or a nail, or a piece of metal. The chargeback on my card was harder to explain. I called the bank as soon as I got settled. After fighting my way through the automated menu and 3 different departments, I finally got a human being on the line. We flagged a transaction from an unusual merchant, the rep explained. Buckhorn's Rest Lodging. Our system marked it as potential fraud. So you disputed it? I asked. Yes, she said, automatically. Our system reversed the charge pending review. I never reported it as fraud, I said. I stayed there. I signed a receipt. There was a pause on her end. Well, that's the notation we have, she said. If you'd like to keep the dispute open, we can send you a form. No, I interrupted. Close it. Put the charge back. I don't want any trouble with them. With the merchant? She asked, confused. Yeah, I said, with the merchant. I hung up feeling like I'd just kicked a sleeping dog. Life moved on. I learned my new job, memorized my commute, found a coffee shop that got my order right more often than not. Months passed. I stopped jumping at every late-night noise. Then the emails started. The first one came 3 months after I checked out of Buckhorn's Rest. It landed in my inbox at 3:11 a.m. Room 7. Payment received. There was no sender name. Just a generic address that looked like it had been auto-generated. Numbers and letters mashed together. No company domain. The body of the email was short. Thank you for your continued stay, Room 7. Appreciates your loyalty. That was it. No link, no signature, no logo. I would have chalked it up to spam, but there was a problem. The subject line had the last 4 digits of my card in it. I checked my banking app the next morning. Another charge from Buckhorn's Rest Lodging had posted sometime in the night. Same amount as before. 1 night's stay. I called the bank again. I need to report a fraudulent charge, I said. The rep pulled up my account. From Buckhorn's Rest, she asked. Yeah, I said. That place. I haven't been there in months. Another pause. Then, it shows here you authorized recurring payments. I what? I snapped. It appears a merchant agreement was added, she said. Monthly billing. Same amount, same merchant. It was accepted in person on the night of your original stay. Cold crept into my hands. I never agreed to recurring payments, I said. There must be a mistake. I can open a dispute, she offered. But I see there was already a dispute for this merchant that you asked us to close. Sometimes that can complicate things. I closed my eyes. Forget it, I said. Just leave it for now. When I checked my email, the message was gone. Not in my inbox, not in spam, not in trash, like it had never existed. I told myself it was a glitch. I told myself I'd deal with it when I had time. The second email came a month later. Same time, 3:11 a.m. Room 7, door remained closed. The body of the email this time. Good guests follow rules. We hope you continue to enjoy your stay. Another charge hit my account. I didn't call the bank. I tried to convince myself it was some kind of bizarre billing error. That night, I dug through my boxes until I found the folded paper the manager had given me, the one I'd shoved into my pocket on my way out. Room 7, 1 night, paid in full if you come back. I stared at those 3 words for a long time. If you come back, I muttered. I'm not going back. I put the paper in a drawer and told myself that was the end of it. It wasn't. The dream started after the third charge. They were always the same. I'd be standing in the parking lot of Buckhorn's Rest, the neon vacancy sign buzzing overhead, except the letters didn't spell vacancy anymore. They flickered between different words, too fast to catch. Sometimes I thought I saw my own name in there. The sky would be wrong, too low, too dark, like the clouds were made of concrete pressing down. All the doors to all the rooms would be closed, except one. Room 7. Its porch light would be the only one on, a pale, sickly yellow. The curtains would be drawn, but I could feel something on the other side of the glass. Watching, waiting. In the dream, my feet would carry me forward even when my mind screamed to stop. Gravel crunched under my shoes. The air grew colder with each step. When I reached the door, the scratches would already be there. Not 4 neat lines anymore, but wild, overlapping marks like something had spent hours trying to claw its way in or out. The knob would turn on its own, just a fraction, enough to click. Then I'd wake up in my own bed, sweating, heart pounding, my eyes locked on the apartment door. And for just a split second, I'd think I could see something move under the gap at the bottom. I lasted a year. 12 charges, 12 emails that appeared in the middle of the night and vanished by morning. 12 months of telling myself I'd call the bank tomorrow, I'd change my card tomorrow, I'd deal with it tomorrow. I'm not proud of that. Fear does weird things to your priorities. The thing that finally pushed me over the edge wasn't a dream. It wasn't an email. It was a notification from my card company. Unusual activity alert, new merchant location. I opened it, expecting another Buckhorn's Rest charge. It wasn't. It was a refund. Buckhorn's Rest lodging, room 7 reversal. The amount was small, just enough to cover one night. Attached was a note. We don't charge guests who never check out. For the first time, the fear shifted into something else. Anger. I grabbed my laptop and opened a browser. If Buckhorn's Rest was some kind of scam operation, I'd find proof, reviews, complaints, something. I searched for Buckhorn's Rest Motel, Arizona. Nothing. I tried different spellings. Buckhorn's Rest, Buckhorn Rest. I widened the search. I dug into maps, street view, satellite images. I followed links to local directories, business registries, tourist blogs. Still nothing. Finally, buried on page after page of unrelated results, I found an old message board post from years ago. The formatting was broken, the images dead links. Anybody remember that old motel off exit 17? Sign said Buckhorn's Rest. There was a reply. They demolished that place like 5-6 years ago. Nothing there now but a flat patch of dirt and a busted signpost. I checked the date on the post. 2 years before I stayed there. The room felt smaller, the air felt thinner, like I'd climbed a mountain without leaving my chair. There was only one thing left to do. I bought a new charger on my way out of town. 2 days later, I was back on the same highway, heading east this time. The desert looked the same. The road looked the same. The gas gauge stayed above empty. I told myself I'd get to exit 17, see the empty lot, and finally be able to write the whole thing off as some kind of bizarre misunderstanding. That's not what happened. The sign was still there. Buckhorn's Rest, exit 17, vacancy. Same rustic metal, same peeling letters, same flickering light. I pulled off onto the exit ramp. The 2-lane road beyond looked exactly as I remembered. Same scrub, same rock formations. Same sense of emptiness pressing in on both sides. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Maybe it's a different Buckhorn's, I told myself. Maybe the post was about another place. Maybe. The motel appeared over the rise exactly where it had been before. Same low, L-shaped building. Same cracked lot. Same neon sign humming overhead. Same office window glowing a dull red. There were no other cars. I parked in the same spot. This time, I didn't bother pretending I was just tired. I didn't tell myself this was about closure or curiosity or proving anything to myself. I got out of the car with my heart hammering and my palms slick with sweat, and I walked straight into the office. The bell chimed as I opened the door. The manager looked up from behind the counter like he'd been expecting me. "Evening," he said. "Been a while." Anger flared hot in my chest. "What is this place?" I demanded. He studied me for a moment. "You came back," he said. "Most don't. Not voluntarily." "You've been charging me every month," I said. "Sending me emails. You know how much trouble this could cause. How is this even legal?" A faint smile touched his mouth. "You're worried about legalities?" he asked. "That's adorable." I stepped up to the counter, hands flat on the wood. "I want this to stop," I said. "No more charges. No more emails. No more whatever this is." He tilted his head. "You really think it's me doing those things?" he asked. "You run the place," I shot back. "Who else would it be?" He looked past me, out through the office window at the empty lot. "You're still thinking of it as a place," he said. "That's your first mistake." I followed his gaze. From this angle, the neon vacancy sign was reflected faintly in the glass. For a second, it looked like the letters were backwards. "Explain," I said. He sighed. "You stayed in room 7, he said. "You didn't open the door. That's good. It noticed. It approved. It decided you were compatible." "Compatible with what?" I asked. "Some people check in," he said, "and the room lets them go. They're just passing through. Wrong temperament. Wrong flavor." He grimaced slightly at his own choice of word. "Others," he continued, "it takes an interest in. It doesn't want them for one night. It wants them for longer." I swallowed. "Longer than a night," I said, "like a frequent guest program." "Like a reservation," he said. "Permanent." The office felt colder. "I left," I said. "I drove away. I'm here now because I chose to come back." "Are you?" he asked quietly. I frowned. "What is that supposed to mean?" He reached under the counter and pulled out a small stack of papers held together with a binder clip. He slid them across to me. The top sheet was a printout of a bank statement. My bank statement. Every Buckhorn's Rest charge was highlighted, each line circled. Next to them, in neat pen, someone had written one word over and over. "Staying." I flipped through the pages. Some of them weren't mine. Different names, different banks, different dates going back years. "Everyone in that stack," the manager said, "tried to leave it behind. Change their card, close their account, move across the country. Doesn't matter." He tapped the paper. "Once room 7 marks you as staying," he said, "you're staying. Whether you're physically here or not is just logistics." "That's insane," I said. "Rooms don't decide things. Rooms don't send emails." He held my gaze. "You think buildings don't remember?" he asked. "You think all the people who've ever screamed or begged or bled inside these walls just evaporate?" I looked down at the papers again. "What do you want from me?" I asked. He shrugged. "Me," he said. "Nothing. I'm just the clerk." "Then what does it want?" I snapped. He considered that for a moment. "Company," he said finally. "Consistency. A guest who keeps the rules. Someone who closes the door and locks it and stays where they're supposed to stay." "I'm not staying," I said. "I'm leaving. Right now. You're going to stop the charges, and I'm going to forget this place exists." He nodded slowly. "You can try," he said. I turned to go. "Just remember," he added, "you came back once already. That doesn't usually happen by accident." I didn't answer. I walked out, got in my car, and drove straight past room 7 without looking at it. The porch light was on. I could feel it like a heat lamp on the side of my face, even through the closed window. I didn't look in the rearview mirror until I hit the main road. When I finally did, the motel was gone. No sign, no building, no neon. Just flat, empty desert. I didn't sleep that night, or the next, or the one after that. The bank charges stopped for a while. The emails went quiet. I started to believe I'd somehow broken whatever connection there was by facing it head on. Then, last month, at 3:11 a.m., my phone buzzed on the nightstand. New email. Room 7, check-in complete. My stomach dropped before I even opened it. The body of the email was longer this time. You are not leaving. You have never left. You have been in room 7 since the first night. The rest is the dream. I laughed. Out loud. A sharp, panicked sound. Nice try, I told the empty room. I'm in my apartment. In Los Angeles. I have a job. I stopped. The air felt wrong. Too cold. I could see my breath in the glow from the phone screen. Very slowly, I turned my head toward the door. 4 pale lines were scratched into the bottom of it. They hadn't been there when I went to bed. My heart started to race. I swung my legs off the bed and stood up, every part of me screaming not to touch the door, not to look through the peephole. I did it anyway. I pressed my eye to the peephole. For a second, I saw the familiar hallway of my apartment building. Beige walls, patterned carpet, the exit sign glowing red at the far end. Then, like someone turning down a dimmer switch, the scene darkened. The walls faded. The carpet bled away into cracked asphalt. The exit sign flickered, its letters rearranging themselves into a sickly, buzzing word. Vacancy. The hallway was gone. In its place was the walkway outside room 7. My door wasn't my door anymore. It was the same cheap brown paint, the same tarnished handle, the same faint smear of dirt, where hands had pushed against it for decades. On the other side, something shifted. A shadow leaned in, just out of the peephole's clear circle of view. Open the door, the voice whispered. Same tone, same too close, too flat sound. My hand floated toward the lock almost of its own accord. This isn't real, I said. This is a dream. Open the door, it repeated. My fingers brushed the deadbolt. I thought about all the months of charges, all the emails, all the nights waking up convinced something was waiting just outside. All the people whose names were on those papers in the manager's office. Guests who never checked out. Good guests follow rules. I pulled my hand back. No, I said. Silence pressed in from every direction. For a moment, I thought that was it. That I had finally done the one thing that mattered, refused. Then the knocking started. Soft, patient, rhythmically precise. Knock, knock, knock. Not just at my door. At the wall behind my head. At the floor under my feet. From the ceiling above. Each knock came in threes, each set closer than the last. The room, my room, the motel room, both at once, seemed to pulse in time with the sound. My phone screen flickered. New email, room 7, stay extended. I didn't open it. I walked backward until my legs hit the edge of the bed. I sat down, never taking my eyes off the door. The knocking went on for a long time. Long enough for my fear to burn out into something else. Not courage, not acceptance, just a bone-deep understanding. This wasn't about opening the door tonight. It was about how many nights there would be. How many more 3:11 a.m. emails. How many more scratches on doors that weren't supposed to have them. How many more little ways room 7 would tug at the edges of my life until I got tired enough, weak enough, lonely enough to decide that opening the door sounded easier than staying awake. You ask me, at the start, why I still pay for a motel room that doesn't exist anymore. It's simple. As long as I keep paying, as long as I acknowledge that I'm still staying, the door stays closed. Whatever rules this thing plays by, That seems to be one of them. Guests who pay are guests who follow the rules. Guests who follow the rules get to pretend for a little while that they're somewhere else. So every month, when that charge hits my account, I let it go through. I don't dispute it. I don't change my card. I don't call the bank, because I know what the email will say if I ever stop. Checkout confirmed, please open the door. And the truth is, I don't know how long I'd be able to keep it closed.